Being our Chief Global Affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, our military analyst, Colonel Steve Ganyard. And Martha, let me begin with you. A lot of signs now that Vladimir Putin is isolated. We see those pictures of him at the end of very long tables alone. Also some signs of dissension inside his inner circle. What are you picking up about that?
I think that's exactly right, George, and I've been hearing that for over a week, that he is behaving erratically, that he does not trust his inner circle anymore. I mean, think how much intelligence the U.S. put out leading up to this invasion. That was very worrisome for Vladimir Putin, who's talking, how are they getting this? Is any of my inner circle talking? But his erratic behavior is continuing, they say, and his ferocity and intent as well.
And Steve, we're seeing some of these oligarchs, as James just reported, starting to speak out a little bit, calling for peace. I have a couple of questions on that. A version of the question I asked Vice President Kamala Harris: what difference does it make? Would the U.S. actually like to see the oligarchs and the Russian people come together and depose Vladimir Putin?
I don't think it's the oligarchs going to do that. Putin owns the oligarchs. They are his bank. All his assets are held by the oligarchs. So he owns them. If they are speaking out, George, it's only because Putin said they could speak out. So I think we ought to look at it from a different angle. If we hear the oligarchs speaking out more, it may be that Putin wants them to say, hey, we need to pressure him and we need to do it. But I think we need to think about off-ramps here, George. The off-ramps are critical. And the thing that's interesting to me is that the Ukrainians asked the Chinese to come in and broker a peace deal, and they have agreed to that in principle. So Xi Jinping could have a double win here with his Olympics and step in to be the savior of this conflict.
We'll see what comes of that. In the meantime, Martha, you mentioned the intelligence. What is it saying now about the potential for Kyiv to fall?
I think it all looks bad, and we've seen it. We've seen Ian's reports. We've seen that convoy now about 17 miles away from Kyiv. The officials I speak to say that all Vladimir Putin wants to do at this point is crush Ukraine, and they're worried that he can do that. His tactics, obviously, pointing at civilians now. His initial push into Ukraine didn't go the way he wanted it to go, and that has really increased his intent to keep going to crush Ukraine. George.
Steve, can the Ukrainians hold out long enough to at least give some chance for this diplomacy, perhaps by Xi Jinping and others, to work?
It's hard to say, George. One of the things we've been talking about all week is this convoy coming down, and this convoy is particularly disturbing. Most of the strikes we've seen are either aerial strikes or long-range missile strikes. The Russians have very few of those, so what they need is that conventional artillery. That convoy has lots of conventional artillery. It's getting closer to the city. When it gets to about 10 to 15 miles, then they can begin the shelling of the city that's our dread there, is that it turns into a Grozny or in Aleppo. So that's why it's important to keep that convoy outside of 10 to 15 miles from the city.
Ominous. Steve Ganyard, Martha Raddatz, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.